What is up, guys? So after like a 5 months break between the first half of Young Justice Outsiders, the show has now returned with 3 new episodes, where the rest of the episodes will come out in the following weeks. This week we had episode 14, 15, and 16, episode 14 being titled Influence, episode 15 being titled Leverage, and episode 16 being titled Illusion of Control. It's the I in anti as well as the Li in life in Prepare the Anti-Life Equation, which, if you don't know, that is what the first letter of every word or title of these episodes are going to spell out, which obviously has to do with Darkseid. Anyway, I really like that. I just wanted to mention that in this video. In this video, I will be reviewing these 3 episodes, giving each one of them an individual score, and in the end of the video, reviewing the entire week, all 3 episodes together, maybe as one long episode, but this doesn't really work as one long episode. Usually they don't, so it's really just how good the whole week was with these 3 episodes. Typically, it's just the average of all 3 scores, but it could differ here or there. With all that in mind, let's start with episode 14, titled Influence. So this episode begins showing a couple Justice League members on Thanagar. You have Superman, Wonder Woman, Guy Gardner, Hawkman, and Hawkwoman all on Thanagar, and that's pretty cool to see because I don't think we've ever seen a Thanagar before in this universe. This isn't really much of it, but at least what we get here is pretty interesting with this character, this other Thanagarian, who I'm pretty sure is the same character who was the main villain of the Star-Crossed episodes, the 3 episodes in the end of Justice League, the animated series before Justice League Unlimited, so that is pretty cool. I'm pretty sure it's the same character. I also think that this storyline with the Justice League members, as opposed to the Outsiders storyline or anything else we see in the episode, is actually really, really good. It's definitely my favorite part of the episode. These characters, especially Guy Gardner, who is very comic book accurate, and it's the first time we're really seeing him in this universe or in this TV show. I don't think we've ever really seen him or we've ever really heard what he sounds like or anything or how he acts. It's definitely very comic book accurate and it's pretty entertaining. The rest of the Justice League members also, I really like this storyline. I think that the fight scenes are pretty good, and they also introduced Big Barda in this storyline, where the characters of Superman, Wonder Woman, and Hawkwoman, they all go to Granny Goodness's ship, which is where we see Granny Goodness for the first time outside of her human form, but this introduces Big Barda, which I definitely expected Big Barda to appear in this season because of how heavily focused around Apocalypse and Darkseid, who is going to be the main villain this season is. I expected Mr. Miracle to show up as well, and I think it's a matter of time before he does. But as for Big Barda herself, I think this is a pretty good introduction with a good fight scene between Superman and Wonder Woman and Hawkwoman fighting all the Furies as well as Granny Goodness. I think that also visually this whole sequence of events is definitely a lot better than the rest of the episode. It just looks really good, so that's definitely my favorite part of the episode. I think that the rest of the episode doesn't really hold up to this part. I think that some of it isn't good, some of it is just okay, but I definitely think overall this is not a bad episode at all. For instance, my least favorite part of the episode is whenever we see G. Gordon Godfrey's newscast. It's really boring. It's really just twice, I think, with Granny Goodness. Maybe it's like 3 times in Lex Luthor, but it's really boring, and it really is a lot less interesting than anything else that's going on in the episode. I don't know why they're doing it so often. I don't think they did. They didn't really do these newscasts so often in the last seasons, or like whenever they introduced this character in season 2, but we're seeing it so often in these episodes, and it gets really annoying. That's really my only complaint about the episode. I have other things I don't love, but that's one thing about the episode, and one thing about the entire week that I really, really didn't like. It's only in the episode, but there isn't really much else in the other 2 episodes that I disliked at all. Another thing that happens in this episode is the Outsiders like Geoforce and Halo and Forager as well as Terra all joining the team, with Beast Boy joining as well, or Beast Boy as well as Superboy and Tigress all rejoining the team, which I guess is cool. I don't think they needed an entire storyline dedicated to that. It really could have just been the opening scene of the episode and that is it, but I guess it's fine. I do really like Beast Boy's storyline in this episode as well as every episode of this week, or at least the episodes that focused on it. I do think it's pretty interesting. They're definitely putting him in the limelight, which I think is pretty cool. He's a lot better of a character than the other Outsiders, or the Outsiders in general. I would much rather see episodes focused on the team like Beast Boy and Blue Beetle and Kid Flash or Bart Allen, which is what we get in the last episode of this week, which is why that episode is definitely my favorite, but I'll get to that later. As for now, the first episode, titled Influence, I think is probably the worst of the week. It's not bad at all, but I don't think it really lives up to Young Justice standards in general, but I'd give it a maybe an 8.2 out of 10. So then there's episode 15, titled Leverage. The episode begins with Beast Boy filming Space Trek 3016, with Granny Goodness definitely trying to infuriate him. It's definitely not a very significant scene. It doesn't really mean very much, but I kind of like it. I think it was a good way to start the episode, but that goes into Beast Boy along with the rest of the Outsiders, or the members of the team who were Outsiders, all going on a mission. I really wish they would have put some former members of the team who were not on the Outsiders on this, like Blue Beetle, Impulse, and I don't know, it's other than Beast Boy, it's just Outsiders, which is, I just want to see the team more and the Outsiders less. But anyway, I think this whole storyline with the Outsiders going to Russia, investigating the Rocket Red thing, which I love it how they just introduce these sometimes very, very significant, sometimes very obscure DC things, like here, an obscure DC superhero in Rocket Red, or I guess they're changing it here, where it's not exactly a superhero, it's definitely kind of, but I really like how they just casually have all these characters introduced into the DC universe, into this version of it. I really like that, so that is a part of this storyline I liked. I really like the covert operation part of it, which is something that Young Justice generally does very, very well. It's the whole the whole point of the team of the Young Justice, or I guess they're just called the team, is to be a more covert version of the Justice League, so I like it when they do covert operations. But that's where the Suicide Squad comes in, something we've never seen before in this TV show, which is pretty insane considering how many seasons we've seen, or it's not really been a lot of seasons, but how much backstory this universe has. It's crazy that they've never done the Suicide Squad, or at least said that there was a Suicide Squad, but this is pretty cool. It's not exactly a large team, and it doesn't have a lot of members of the squad that are like significant members in the comics or even in the movie, other than Captain Boomerang, but I definitely think it's a lot of fun, and I really like these characters. I think that they should definitely do more with them. They could even do a spin-off show with the Suicide Squad. I think that would be honestly pretty cool, or at least have some sort of significance with them in the universe. But I think the fight scenes between the Suicide Squad and the Outsiders, or I guess the team, as well as the Rocket Red people, I think that those were really good. They look really cool. They're very well animated and I guess choreographed, if that's how animation works. I think these fight scenes are pretty good, and I really like the conflict between, in the end, with Amanda Waller talking to Aquaman, or the former Aqualad Calderon. That was pretty cool how they are both keeping their team secrets, Suicide Squad and the team. So I think this whole thing with the Suicide Squad and the Outsiders, or the team, as well as the Rocket Reds, it was a pretty good storyline, definitely the best part of this episode. This episode also has a storyline in Taos with the teleporting kid that we saw in the last season with his father as well, and this whole thing with the Metahuman kids, which is definitely not something I loved in this episode. I didn't really care very much for these characters at all in this episode. I think that these storylines, if they're going to take up such a big part of the episode, they need more interesting characters. This one just didn't have that, so wasn't really interested in this storyline. It definitely wasn't bad. I mean, nothing Young Justice does so far has ever been bad, but it just compared to other things we've seen in the episode, like the thing with the other storyline with the team and the Rocket Reds and the Suicide Squad, it's kind of boring, like whenever they switch from that to this. So that's one thing about the episode that I'm not gonna say I didn't like, but I just didn't love. So I just wanted to mention actually something that happened in this episode that has to do with the last episode, where in episode 14, the last one, Beast Boy saves a girl from being mugged, who then takes a selfie and posts it online. And in this episode, at the end, Beast Boy checks that post, and it has 52 million likes, which might be the most absurd thing that's ever happened on this show, because that's an absurd amount of likes, and that's something I wanted to mention. The episode ends with a reveal about Halo, which I don't really like Halo or the rest of the Outsiders like Forager and Geoforce, so this isn't really something I liked very much. It wasn't something I was interested in really, but if this makes these characters more interesting because they're really boring, then maybe this is something that I would like. But it revealed that Gabrielle, the woman who the Mother Box Halo took over after she died, was hired by Count Vertigo, or the guy who's working for Count Vertigo, to let open the doors to Geoforce's palace, or wherever he lived, and so the assassin can come in to kill his parents. I definitely think that will cause some drama on the Outsiders, which is a lot more interesting than what they're doing now, which is basically nothing other than just going on missions. So I guess that can be interesting. It's just that in the episode when it was happening, it wasn't something that I was really interested in. Anyway, This episode, I think, is a lot better than the first episode, where I really liked the Suicide Squad storyline with the team and the Rocket Reds, and I did also like some other things in this episode. I didn't love the Tau storyline or anything else that was going on, but I definitely think that the whole thing to do with the main storyline of this episode really held it up, making it a little bit better than the last episode, because at least this episode didn't have any really boring newscasts from G. Gordon Godfrey. So anyway, I would give this episode an 8.5 out of 10. Also, before I move on to the next episode, one thing that I really didn't like about the main storyline with the Suicide Squad and the team and Rocket Red is a recurring problem for this season. It's the fact that Halo, in the fight between the Suicide Squad and the team, got shot right in the stomach and she basically died, which I hate this so much because not only does it make no sense that people get scared when she gets shot because she's practically immortal, she can't die, she heals from every wound, so why do people keep on getting so scared and saying Halo, specifically Geoforce, but also how come she's the only character who ever gets shot? How come no other character ever gets injured? I'm not saying they should, but I'm saying that if Halo keeps on getting hit, every other character should get hit sometimes as well. Either nobody ever gets shot or a couple characters do. You can't have just one single character getting shot over and over and over again, especially if that character can heal from everything. So that's one thing I didn't like about that storyline, but it's really a recurring problem for this season, and specifically the character, not really the episode in general. So then we get to the last episode, titled Illusion of Control, which is by far the best episode of the week, and I really mean that. I think it's a great episode, and I think it's really entertaining. It's thoroughly entertaining. While the first two episodes, I wasn't really entertained, except for maybe in the main storylines, or at least in the storylines that are most entertaining, but here, I was thoroughly entertained through and through, except for maybe in a couple scenes, and I'll start with those scenes to do with Forager and Cyborg, which I liked. I definitely liked the character development for Cyborg here. I really don't like Forager. I never will like Forager, but I definitely like Cyborg, and I really am interested in that storyline, so I definitely didn't dislike that, but I would say it's also the most boring part of this episode. Everything else outside of that is definitely a lot more interesting, but it's still not bad at all. It's definitely still good, which is why even the worst part of this episode is still pretty good, making this episode actually pretty great. And I also wanted to talk about the Artemis storyline, or the Thanksgiving dinner with Artemis and William and everyone in their house. This storyline really did three things. It, one, set up a romance between Artemis and Will, or Roy Harper, which I think they've really done in other episodes, so that's not really something they did here. I mean, that's definitely something they emphasized here, but in the last episode and basically the entirety of the season, it was implied that that is something that they were setting up. But also, there's an argument between Artemis and her mother, which I think is pretty good. I think that it's pretty intense, and it makes a lot of sense, and it's got some great character moments in there, and I definitely think that it's probably the highlight of the storyline. There's also at the end of the episode in this storyline where Halo reveals what we learned about Gabrielle in the last episode to that woman. Honestly, I don't remember her name right now, but it doesn't really matter, which was a pretty good moment, I guess. Again, not really all that interested in that reveal, but maybe it can stir up some drama, maybe make certain things pretty interesting. So I guess that is a good part of this storyline, or at least it's an interesting part. I definitely think the storyline, again, not nearly as good as the main storyline of the episode, but it's also not bad at all. I think it's okay, which I think that the fact that it's not really a major part of the episode, I think that it doesn't really take away from it that much. So then we get to the highlight of not only this episode, but the week in general, everything to do with Blue Beetle, Kid Flash, or Bart Allen, as well as Beast Boy and Static, and the rest of the team in general. This storyline is a lot of fun, and I really, really liked it. I thought that it was incredibly enjoyable. It starts with a couple characters from the team, as well as other certain characters, going to this festival in honor of all these metahuman kids, which is a pretty good and fun start to the episode. I think that this part of it, I just really like these characters, specifically Jaime Reyes, as well as Bart Allen and Beast Boy. I think these characters are really good. Static can be in there as well. I don't like the Outsiders, but I really like it when they focus around the actual team of these characters, especially when they are suited up later in the episode. So Count Vertigo, it seems like Count Vertigo was kidnapping Perdita. It's later revealed that he really didn't, which is a twist I did not see coming, but now Blue Beetle suits up, and that just really highlights the episode. Blue Beetle is maybe my favorite character in this entire show. I love the dynamic between himself, Jaime Reyes, and the Scarab. It's just so much fun. I love his costume. I think it's the best Blue Beetle costume we've ever seen in anything in comics or any media, and I think that his powers are really cool. I think that this might be my favorite character on the show, so it really highlights the episode. There are some really funny moments between him and the Scarab, a lot of fun moments, and on top of that, there are other characters like Beast Boy and Static and Impulse or Bart Allen. I have a really hard time calling him Kid Flash because while he is Kid Flash, Wally West is Kid Flash, so I either call him Bart Allen or Impulse. But anyway, I think that this whole thing is a lot of fun. What happens is the team chase after Count Vertigo, and there's a lot of great fun scenes with Vertigo's powers, which is later revealed to be Simon, and I don't remember her name, but his girlfriend, I guess, which is a twist I didn't see coming at all. Turns out that whole thing was a distraction so that they can take away the kid metahumans from the festival. So the team shows back up within a very satisfying moment and defeats or fights Onslaught in some pretty great fighting moments. I think that this is a pretty great fight scene. My favorite moment by far is when one of the villains opens a boom tube, and right under it is the teleporting guy, which again, don't remember his name right now, but also Impulse, or again, Bart Allen or Kid Flash, and the teleporting guy teleports away, and maybe my favorite mode of the entire week, Impulse, again, I have a hard time calling it Kid Flash, but Bart Allen runs around the boom tube and runs out of it, which I think looks so cool, and it's such a creative way and creative use of the speedster powers. I think that was awesome. This fight in general was great with Beast Boy and Blue Beetle and Bart Allen and Static and all the other characters using their abilities against the Onslaught Groot. It is, I think, so much fun. It's a great fight scene in a great storyline, which ends with the team going public, specifically Beast Boy, Blue Beetle, and Kid Flash, which not only is that a great moment, but it really made me realize what I want to see in this show. It's mainly these three characters, Beast Boy and Kid Flash, or Bart Allen and Blue Beetle. That's what the show should focus on, and when it does focus on these characters, specifically before this season was Bart Allen and Blue Beetle in Season 2, but now in Season 3, I think that Beast Boy has gone in there, maybe even Static as well. These four characters are so entertaining, and it really highlights the episode. It's really what I want to see in the show, not the outsiders, not Forager, Halo, or Geoforce. It's Impulse, Blue Beetle, and Beast Boy, and Static. That is what I want to see, so that's why this episode is by far my favorite of this week, and I'd give it a 9.5 out of 10. So in terms of the score of the whole week in general, it definitely doesn't work as a single episode, where a single hour-long episode, but it never really does. But I think that in terms of the average score, it's an 8.7333333, so on and so forth. But I would kind of average that up or bring that up to a 9 out of 10, mostly because of the third episode being as good as it is, with the first two episodes being around average. So let me know your thoughts about the week, as well as the 3 separate episodes in the comments down below. What are some of your favorite moments? And if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe, and thanks for watching.